Knock out these two prop shaft seals with a punch. The lower unit on the Bravo 1 Outdrive is called the gear housing. The only special tool you might need to replace the seals on the lower unit is a spanner wrench to loosen and tighten the bearing carrier retainer. An OEM seal kit for the lower unit is about $60. The outside race of the propeller shaft bearing is pressed into this assembly. That's why this part is called the bearing carrier. The service manual calls for Loctite on these two shaft seals. I have a nice seal driver kit that makes this job easier, but it's totally doable just with some sockets. The first seal I will drive all the way down until it bottoms out. The second seal I'll put in just about a 1/16 inch beyond being flush. The exact depth of the seal inside the opening is not critical, as long as it's in there squarely and facing in the right direction. One seal faces so that it keeps the water out, the other seal faces so that it keeps the oil in. I selected 3 different size sockets for this job. The first socket will set the seal square and flush to the opening. The next size socket will push the seal down about a 1/16 of an inch past flush, and the last socket will squarely push the seal all the way down the opening. That slot in the bottom of the carrier leads right to this oil drain plug. This flat washer is the thrust ring. This other washer is the load ring. The load ring is a crush washer. When it's crushed with lots of force, it can take on a new dimension and thickness. That washer is crushed when you tighten the bearing carrier retaining ring. The rolling resistance or preload of the propeller shaft bearing is set by tightening that bearing carrier retaining ring. You tighten that ring to crush this washer and move the bearing carrier more forward, moving the outer race of the propeller shaft bearing closer to the propeller shaft bearing. I've carefully inspected this unit and determined that I don't need to replace any gears or any bearings or any of the other hard parts. I'm only replacing the seals. And therefore I determined that I don't need a new crush washer. I don't need the washer to be any bigger than its original size when I started. If I want to tighten up the clearance on that bearing a little bit, I can make the washer a little bit smaller by adding a little bit of force to it, but I know I don't need to make it any bigger. So when I'm only doing the seals, I do not use a new load ring. However, you may need to replace your twisted and bent propeller shaft. In which case, you need a new propeller shaft or a used one that's in good condition. You should press on a new propeller shaft bearing. You need to put a new bearing race or cup into that bearing carrier, and you need a new load ring so that you can properly set the rolling resistance on your new bearing assembly. I can flatten out and reuse this tab washer. This anti-seize is an aluminum powder and graphite suspended in a waterproof grease. This is Loctite Aviation Gasket Sealant. I had to order it online. First, I paint some onto the carrier to hold the O-ring in place. Then I paint a nice even coat on these mating surfaces. These are not sealing surfaces. The seal is created by that large O-ring and the two shaft seals. Lubricate the two seals and fill the spaces between them with lubricant 2,4-C. I install that tabbed washer and I make sure the carrier is clocked perfectly. Now I'll tighten that bearing carrier retaining ring just until there's no more play in the propeller shaft bearing. That last turn will take a lot of force because I need to squeeze that new large O-ring into that tapered place. Now I can set and measure the bearing preload or rolling resistance of the propeller shaft bearing.